Week 3 didn't go according to plan for the New Orleans Saints, but we're still going to do our little film review slash playback when it comes to the New Orleans Saints here on the Straight Up Saints podcast, brought to you by Scott McNair Injury Lawyers. You've been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, hurt offshore. Scott McNair handles it all. You give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. The Saints, like I mentioned, they got their teeth kicked in week 3. We've talked about the offensive struggles, the defensive struggles, special teams collapsing, just overall not the type of performance that you want to see, especially for a team that this early in this Kellen Moore era, after 2 really hard-fought games, even though they resulted in losses, to have a game end really within like 10 to 15 minutes of real time was quite deflating. So we'll go through it. We're not going to be as lengthy as the other ones because frankly, there's just bad tape all over the field. Like I said, they were outplayed in all 3 phases. And I think that, this might be one of those games where, as a fan, it's very hard to stomach through it all. Kind of throw out some of the tape. We'll highlight maybe a little bit of good. We'll talk about Spencer Rattler. I think there's a couple of things that obviously need to get fixed. And we'll do our weekly spot on Cesar Ruiz, where he just ends up struggling yet again. And obviously that's been a concern for the New Orleans Saints. So let's get things started off with Bryan Bresee. I think Bryan Bresee's been one of the few bright spots in this game, specifically against Seattle. And you see it there. First off, the get off from the snap is just tremendous. And I think for New Orleans, and we'll go back for this one, I think you're looking for a pass rush to step up. It wasn't the case at all in week 3. Sam Darnold was pressure, I believe, 3 times. And, on his dropbacks. And I think for the Saints, a lot of this struggles could be attributed to not having Chase Young. Everyone's kind of has to go up in a rank. And this isn't a very talented defensive line to begin with. But Bryan Bresee's the one guy who I would say, feel confident about in terms of his ability to win his one-on-one matchup. So he's going to be on the right side of your screen here. And look, man, I know that looked like a double team that he's still winning. So I'll freeze the frame right there. You're pretty much got him blocked. You just pay attention to number 72 on Seattle right there. Obviously, Bryan Bresee, his ability to kind of break through that and make this, honestly, a much more difficult throw than it should be for Sam Darnold. I guess you want to give him credit there. Like I said, when you give up 44 points, it's very hard to just sit there and be like, oh, the defense was tremendous. It obviously wasn't. It was crap, especially in the secondary. But if we're going to highlight anyone, I think Bryan Bresee, definitely on this rep, it's a notable one for sure. And I think he's a player that for the Saints, you feel like the upside is there for him. Obviously not the best run defender when it comes to being an interior defensive lineman, but he can get after the quarterback. We've seen high sack numbers from him. I mean, Bryan Bresee literally, since coming over to the New Orleans Saints, has been one of those guys that can he get you, anywhere from 4, 5, 6, as many as 7.5 last year in terms of sacks? Yes. Now he's still searching for his first sack of the season, and I'd like to think that it's going to come soon. But yeah, definitely a good rep from him here. Same goes here, and actually this one, I want to give him credit for. So I know this ends up technically being a gain for Seattle, but the reason I want to give Bryan Bresee credit here is the score is out of reach. Drew Lock's in at this point. I mean, the Seahawks have literally called off the dogs. You're just trying to get to the locker room and make sure there's no injuries. And from the New Orleans Saints perspective, you're just ready to go back on the flight to New Orleans and kind of get the bad taste of this loss out of your mouth. And for them to still kind of see that fight from a guy like Bryan Bresee, who's one of your higher level players, I think it is important, because the last thing you want to do is lose soundly and also look like you quit on your team. And that's not the case for Bryan Bresee, who will be on the left of your screen here. Really good swim move. And again, look, it still ends up being a catch here for Seattle and a gain. I can argue that the refs miss a hold on this spot. But overall, again, you like the fight from Bresee. I think he's one of the few players that when you go to watch, and I really wouldn't advise it, but when you go to watch the Seattle game over again, he's one of the guys that stands out. One here that doesn't stand out for the right reasons, but frankly, it's been the case since the preseason, and I would argue that he is getting worse and worse as a player for the New Orleans Saints, is Cesar Ruiz. So it seems like every game, there's been a point where it looks like he's rushing the quarterback, not the guy in front of him, not the actual pass rusher. It almost looks like he's rushing the quarterback because his face is turned towards Spencer Rattler. I think this is one of those plays right here where I don't know what the hell he's doing. Genuinely don't know what the hell he's doing. And the fact that it actually that Rattler doesn't get obliterated here is a miracle. And obviously it comes back. It's a penalty on the offensive line, so no gain here. But just watch this play over again, and please tell me what the hell this guy is doing. It's one thing for him to lose his rep, but to pretty much just sabotage your right tackle in the process is impressive work. So, if you want to call Ruiz a generational talent in that regard, go for it. Because again, it's becoming a weekly habit, and I would argue at this point with the Saints when Trevor Penning's healthy again, I'd play Penning at left guard, and I would see if I could play Simpkins at right guard. Because I think he's one of the players who actually does his job, which, by the way, on this rep, let's go back to it. While Ruiz is struggling on the left side of your screen, pay attention to Simpkins on the right side of your screen. He's going to get help here from Banks, but look at him just pancake the shit out of that Seattle defender. So, kind of the duality of man here. You got Ruiz losing his rep on the left side, and you got Simpkins looking great on the right side of your screen. And look, man, call me harsh, call it a reactionary take. The minute Penning's ready to go, I would put Penning at left guard. I'd start Simpkins at right. I'd say Cesar Ruiz hit the bench because it is week to week of number 51 looking pretty clueless out there on the field. So we'll keep it rolling here. I think next up we're going to talk about Spencer Rattler and some plays that, didn't exactly stand out for the right reasons. Again, I want to give Rattler credit. I thought he competed his ass off in a game that's very easy to just kind of like tuck your head between your knees and say, that's it. I'm going to the locker room. But, this right here, I think is one that you just have to rip. So just pay attention to Brandon Cooks. He's at the 30, down the seam. Look, I like Rattler. I don't mind that he's more of a conservative quarterback, but it's not going to win you games, and it's not going to keep you as a starter in the NFL for long. Because the Saints aren't a team that is a game manager away from making the playoffs, and you just got to take care of the football. They need a guy to take chances. And Rattler right here, just rip it. Just rip it right to Cooks. He's open. Rattler's got the arm strength, so that's not a question. I just don't understand why he's not ripping that throw to Cooks, and instead he's going underneath to Alvin, and it ends up being an incompletion. So plays like that, and it's not to be anti-Rattler. I think I've been pretty, kind with my thoughts about Rattler this season. And I don't even think he's played poorly. I just think when you talk about the negatives, his inability to push the ball downfield or, the lack of desire to do so is quite frustrating as a fan. I mean, again, watch this play over. Cooks is open. He's open, man. Like that ball's got to go to Cooks. And who knows, if you hit him in stride, maybe it's 6. I don't know if Cooks really has the breakaway speed enough to make it done, but at the very least, you're in the red zone. And, plays like that, I think, are quite frustrating. I really do. So, again, it's not to say that Rattler was awful in Seattle, but there's too many conservative throws that are made. This one here is an incompletion that, again, it's just a second behind. It's the right read. He's going to Juwan Johnson. It's Juwan Johnson all the way. But that ball's got to be out right there. And it's still in Rattler's hands. And again, that could be a chunk play. That could, you imagine, in my opinion, Juwan's getting to at least the 40 there. So plays like this are the ones where, you feel like Rattler's just kind of not leveling up to where you'd like him to be. And again, it doesn't mean he can't get there. But I feel like those are just common plays that we've seen. So we're going to go back and look at both of them. Go back to the Cooks one, I think, is the I don't want to say egregious, but it's the one that's the most frustrating as a fan because who knows? Maybe it is 6. Like I said, right there, just let it rip. Let it rip to Brandon Cooks. And he doesn't. So, I think, again, Rattler's he's done a good job taking care of the football. But, man, you got to take some chances here. This is not a Saints team that has Super Bowl aspirations and needs their quarterback to take care of the football because they have a top-tier defense waiting on the other side. They don't have that. Got to take some chances. Doesn't let it rip on the Brandon Cooks throw. And then on the Juwan Johnson one, just a little bit late. Like, that ball should be out. It's not. It's a second late. Ends up being incomplete. So, again, Rattler was not the reason they lost 44-13. I can't stress that enough. there are so many reasons they lost. They were not prepared. They were undisciplined. The defense was a mess. The special teams was the worst unit out of the three. But Rattler needs to be more efficient. Rattler needs to push the ball a little bit more down the field. And I think he's just got to trust his eyes. Like in that Brandon Cooks one, he's there. Just let it rip. And the Juwan Johnson one, like, you got the right read. It's going to Juwan. Why is the ball still in your hands, though? It's questions like that. And again, can he get better? Absolutely. I think these are things that you could fix, but that's been the knock on him so far in his NFL career. Just very hesitant to take the chance and more prone to just taking the check down. And I think that's got to switch for him. So again, we'll see. There's 14 more games left this season. I would argue that if he keeps playing like this, he probably won't get all 14. I think the Saints would like to see what Shuck can do as the starter. But look, man, I think that this is the type of tape you try to just throw out the window. But, man, you got a tough task going up against Buffalo, in Buffalo. So the Bills on the road. Josh Allen's obviously been tremendous. That team's been running the football really efficiently. And I think the Saints in all three phases are going to be put to the test. So they're going to need guys like Rattler to really step up if they have any chance of beating the Bills. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in to this playback edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Boo Crew Media. We greatly appreciate all the support you guys have been giving us this season. You guys have been tremendous. And stay tuned for more content here. We'll have our halftime live stream and our post-game live stream on Sunday, regardless of what that game ends up looking like between the Bills and the Saints. And we'll have you covered here on the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.